Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and today is one of those awesome days where we get to have a previous guest come back and tell their story of the growth that they've experienced over the last 3 years. That's right, we started this podcast in the spring of 2020, and right at the heart, right at the peak of COVID, trying to peek its way into our lives, and we interviewed some amazing business founders at that point. Some of them we've invited back, and we'll likely invite many more back. But this particular one is really special to me. It's a founder who has started a business in a field that I am particularly interested in. That is the golf business. And it has been so cool because when we met early 3 years ago, his software that he was developing for golf course management was just kind of getting off the ground and starting to function in all the ways he was hoping to. Over the last 3 years, his growth has been amazing, and that is the whole focus of this podcast, growth and scaling. His journey is really well outlined in this interview, and I loved to see the smile on his face as he talked about the growth that they've seen. I mean, it's fascinating, and it's awesome, and it's inspiring. If you like golf, and you're interested in growth and scaling, you are going to love this podcast. And in the show notes, we'll drop a link to his first interview from 3 years ago, where you saw someone who is a little nervous. Hopefully it's going to work. Hopefully it's going to go. And now you talk to a man who is seeing the growth, has seen the scaling, and is looking forward to an amazing upcoming year. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the backside. Enjoy this interview with Jason Pearsall with Club Caddie. We'll see you on the next side. Welcome to the Growth and Scaling Podcast. This is your host, Todd Westra, and I am so glad you're here today because we are going to interview an amazing founder or executive who is going to share with us their decisions that they made that exploded their growth. So if you need some inspiration, you want to hear how other businesses are doing it, this is a place to be, and we are glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and today we are doing a refresher. We've got one of our original podcast guests from the original show of the Leadership and Business Podcast, and I cannot wait to introduce you all to this man who has built an amazing company doing something that I am super passionate about. And I'm going to let him tell the story. We got Jason Pearsall here today. Jason, tell us who you are and whose problem do you try to solve?
Todd, thank you so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. My name is Jason Pearsall. I'm the CEO at Club Caddie. We're a leading provider of cloud-based golf course and country club management software. And I'm also the managing partner at Warren Valley Golf Course, which is a Donald Ross facility in Metro Detroit.
Nice. So you live in your client's world and you help your client's world.
Yeah, I was a golf course owner before I built golf course software. So I think that I was a client first and, built software to solve problems that we were experiencing. So we still see it that way.
I love it. And now that's not a very common thing to happen, especially in your niche. Like in the golf world, you don't just go from owning and operating a golf course to becoming a software developer. Tell us about that journey. How did you actually fall into that?
Well, I was fortunate to have a software exit and then bought a golf course and then built another app
nice.
To build our golf course. So I guess I kind of had the software background and a passion for golf. My father was a country club general manager, so I've worked every job at a facility over the years and kind of missed it and came into a little money at a young age and thought it would be a smart investment. So it's been an interesting transition and a very fun one too.
Now, on a personal note, I want to know, was it worth it? Because early on in my career, I tried to jump into the golf world and it wasn't as awesome as I hoped. Tell me about it though. I mean, you're still in there. You've been doing this for years now. How has that transition been? You did software, busy, fun, highly profitable, and then jump back into the golf world. How'd that work out?
Well, I went into the golf world because I was passionate about golf and not really to make money in golf. And it's very difficult,
Right.
to run a golf course efficiently, to run it profitably. And so, I guess the golf the golf experience was more something that I wanted to do because, it was a passion project, and I realized that if I wanted to make money, software was a much better way to do it. So, building software for golf allowed me to combine
Right.
passion with the opportunity to potentially make money.
All right, so now a lot of golfers out there are probably thinking, okay, should I be downloading an app to keep my score, or to create a GIN record, and I can start recording my handicap? That's not what you're doing, though. Tell us about how you're helping the golf community with your software.
Yeah, so golf courses kind of peaked in the late 90s, right? Tiger Woods was playing, there were a lot of players, a lot of golf courses throughout the country were built. As we hit a recession in the early 2000s, there wasn't disposable income for people to play golf. So suddenly you had a surplus of golf courses, right, and less people playing the game of golf. And for many golf courses across the country, they shut down. When there's not enough demand, yeah, and there's an oversupply, you've got a real problem. What we do is we help golf courses run their operations with fewer staff. We help them make better decisions so that they make more money with the fewer staff that they have, and that enables more golf courses to stay open.
That's such a real problem that people don't really think about. And I think golf courses in general are I hope they maintain the growth that they're having right now. I feel like there's a little bit of growth in golf right now, as opposed to, I remember that recession when that hit, it affected everything. And I do drive past 2 golf courses on my way to the airport that are dead and just overgrown, and it kind of breaks my heart personally. But what you're doing and the problem you're solving fits such a practical use case. How did you, obviously as you ran your course that you bought and were trying to operate it, you saw that overhead kind of getting a little heavy, I'm guessing, during the slower seasons. And what problem did you set out to solve first? You obviously you're a smart guy, you're a software guy. Which problem did you think you were going to solve, and how over the years has that solution evolved in the growth of your business?
Yeah, so there are different types of golf courses, right? And the golf course that we acquired in 2015 was formerly a private country club that had built a big clubhouse during the 90s when, there was Golf's Peak, and had a huge mortgage they couldn't afford to pay.
Right.
So our vision, we bought the golf course kind of out of foreclosure, and it was really struggling at the time, and our vision was to turn it into a public golf course. And when we got there were a lot of members who had, born and raised on this course. It's been a private course for 100 years. You're not going to turn my course, public.
Wow.
And we ended up compromising with the members. We didn't want to alienate them to go semi-private, which meant that we were still going to have members, but we were going to be open for play during limited times of the day, because there weren't enough members to support the financial obligations of the facility. From a technology standpoint, that was very challenging. There were legacy-based server, on-site or on-premise software systems to run country clubs. And there started to be some early cloud-based systems to run public golf courses. But those, kind of public golf courses were more like what we call mom and pop type golf shops. You have a small shop, you have a golf course. You don't necessarily have a restaurant or a wedding venue. You may not have a driving range or pool or some of the other amenities that require their own software systems in order to effectively operate. So our vision was to build software that could run both public and private clubs, that was cloud-based, and then consequently would have the ability to service the needs of semi-private facilities as well. And today, there are cloud-based solutions that have started off in the public space and have kind of tried to grow to address country clubs. And many of them have struggled because if that wasn't your goal from day one, then you didn't set up the database in a way to handle the needs of what members need different than what public golfers may need. So anyway, back 7 years ago, we started building, and a couple of years ago, we finally got a system together that could handle both pretty well, and we've really grown since then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're literally coming into these venues who were kind of a one-trick pony and turning them into, a management tool that can take what used to take a director for weddings, a director for party, the pool area and the restaurant and all these other parts of the business, and put them all under one umbrella so that it's fewer people can run it, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. Like an event coordinator is a good example. An event coordinator may also book a golf outing. And a golf outing not only includes, blocking off the tee sheets so that other golfers don't book at that same time, but it also involves breaking out lunch, breaking out dinner, maybe giving retail items, like a sleeve of golf balls to every golfer. And when you combine, retail, golf services, food and beverage, in legacy systems, you had to go to 3 or 4 different systems, produce a different invoice out of all systems, combine those together. And then, trying to get reporting data of what your profits were out of an event became very difficult. Having customers spread out between all these different systems meant they'd receive redundant email marketing campaigns or, maybe none at all. And so, those were all problems that, that we recognized and we wanted to solve.
That's so cool. All right. So now you're into this 7 years and you've been growing, obviously it sounds like the first 4 or 5 years was heavy on the dev side, really trying to figure out where the fit was and how you can solve all these problems at once. Tell us about the last 2 years though. How has your growth expanded and what's been your favorite part about that growth journey?
Well, my favorite aspect of our growth journey is that I work with my best friends in an industry that I'm passionate about, and it really doesn't get better than that. Our passion is growing the game of golf by helping golf course operators run their facilities more efficiently and more profitably, and we get to do that every day and see results, and hear feedback from operators of how we help them. And so, building relationships is always the best part of life, and not only growing those relationships with those friends that I started the business with and the new employees that have become friends, but also with the operators that we get to work with every day.
I love that. And, having been in the golf world for a little bit, it is a fun community. Like everyone, no matter what role, whether you're a superintendent, whether you're a greenskeeper, whether you're at the pro shop, everybody kind of feels connected in some way, shape, or form in the golf world. How has in trying to develop the product though, and kind of get it to where you feel like you can just go forth and conquer, what's been your biggest challenge? What's been the biggest hiccup you've had to overcome as you've been trying to get this ready for mass production, mass adoption?
Yeah, what we're really kind of talking about is the stage of scaling the business, right? And I think it's important to understand what we mean by scaling the business. So scaling is not raising money, it's not building a product, and I don't think that a startup should even try to scale until it has confidence in its ability to sell the product, and more importantly, that it's validated its revenue model. So to me, scaling means setting your company up to grow from few to many clients. And it's difficult to talk about scaling because every business has to scale differently. So, the how to scale, truthfully, I don't think is difficult. With enough time, money, and resiliency, just getting knocked down and getting backed up, you'll eventually, every business will solve the how to scale. I think the better question is the when to scale, and more specifically, when to scale what function in your business. If you try to scale the wrong team at the wrong time, you burn your runway and possibly your opportunity. Our early mistake was trying to scale every function too quickly. I like to think I'm a good project manager. I always can improve, right? But the goal, when you're building out a plan, you have to assume you're going to hit your targets or you're going to hit your goals. So then you become the problem becomes, all right, well, once our sales team sells 50 courses in the next week, which of course doesn't happen, but I've got to have a team to implement them. I've got to have a team to support them, and so on. And so you think that you need to build all those teams in parallel, and it's just not how it works in practice. You can't really build a support and implementation team before you've mastered sales and your revenue model, and mastering those was our biggest challenge.
Cool. That's some great input. A lot of businesses do struggle to kind of differentiate that, and they think, they'll focus entirely on customer success before they've even nailed their revenue model. And a lot of companies even struggle to identify who their ideal client avatar looks like, and without really nailing down those essential front pieces, it is almost impossible, because by the time you nail those front pieces, you may have tried to solve the wrong problems that the wrong avatar was going to have with your product. And so this is great. How do you give people advice? How do you let people know, as you talk to other businesses, how do you let them kind of identify, hey, instead of worrying about that right this second, these are the places you should focus on? Any advice there?
Yeah, you only focus on sales and marketing. That's the only thing you should focus on until your sales and marketing is outpacing the rest of your team, and the rest of your team is coming to you saying, I can't support all the business that's coming, right? But sales and marketing drives every business.
I love it.
So if leads are coming in, if demos are turning into revenue, every problem solves itself. There may be a couple month periods that are difficult because you're understaffed, but your team is generally happy because when you're growing and revenue is growing, you can compensate them more, you can help them build a team. Generally, once somebody's involved in a startup, they're excited about the growth and they see, I'm willing to put a couple extra months of 60, 70, 80 hour weeks and to build my team because it will get better in the future.
Now, I heard you talking, like, as you were kind of describing your business model, the difference between public course, private course, or a mixed use course. Were there different sets of challenges that you had to overcome to kind of fit each of these different avatars that you were hitting?
Yeah, definitely. We call it moving upstream. So, we started off with kind of those daily fee public type golf courses that I referred to as mom and pop type shops earlier. And as we, moved upstream and serving more and more clients, you're able to handle clubs that are more complicated. Country clubs are typically more complicated, more high touch, have a different level of expectations from a service level than maybe those daily fee type courses. And, so I don't think it would have been smart for us to go after everybody at once. We had to identify here's who we can currently sell to, figure out how to sell to them. Figure out how much money we can make off of them and what was too high and what we couldn't make off of them, and then move upstream and try the next vertical, which was semi-private and then private and other types of clubs as well.
I love it. So quite literally, I mean, you picked the lowest hanging fruit first, tried to solve their problems before you started trying to solve the ones that you knew would be the most profitable. Is that accurate?
Yeah, but I would say that it was more of a progression to get there than intentional to get there. Initially, we started off trying to target that lower hanging fruit, like you said. And what we recognized is there were like 5 or 6 other companies that were trying to do the same thing. And several of them had started before us and they were better funded than us. And they didn't work harder than us, but they did a lot of other things that gave them a competitive advantage, right? And so we had to quickly recognize where do we want to be different and what's our place in the market. And so we for a while actually realized like we're not going to win these low end deals, and it's a race to the bottom in revenue. So we need to step back and we need to analyze what's our value prop, how can we be different, and we started focusing on other tools that our competitors hadn't yet started building. And altogether the kind of combination of those tools, the basic ones we had built early on and the more sophisticated ones that the upstream clients needed, gave us a competitive advantage with the downstream clients too.
That's so smart. Jason, you are such a smart guy. I love this. I love this interview. Like, honestly, like as you were describing that whole process, I was thinking about my journey the past couple of years, and which is, I was working with a lot of startups, providing this really cool service, helping them message their brand and all this kind of stuff and build their marketing. And yet there's a ton of people playing in that low-hanging fruit market. As soon as I put my trajectory up a little bit to the companies that were actually a little further along down the road than a lot of the startups that I was working with, it became easier to solve their problem because there was less people trying to solve that one. And the benefits I gave to those mid-level clients do feed down to the lower end client, and it does give you a competitive advantage over the other players. That's a smart play.
Well, I appreciate it, Todd. I don't think that I'm that smart. I think that we've just failed a lot of times to get it right eventually, right? And that's the key to being a successful, startup founder, I think, is you're going to get it wrong and you're going to feel stupid a lot. And you just got to keep on going until eventually, you learn from every single effort. Here's what worked a little bit and here's what didn't work at all. And you try to do a little more. Here's what worked a little bit and a little less of the here's what didn't work at all.
I love it. I love it. No, so smart. You are one of the guys that will be an inspiration to those listening. Listen to Jason's original interview we did 3 years ago versus the one we just did right now, and you're hearing a much more professional sound, very polished in your approach to your business, I would have to say. Jason, you have, it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of see and do this revisit today, because a lot of people listening to this podcast right now are those that are kind of in the shoes you've been in the past few years. I've launched, I'm going, but how do I get to that next stage? And you're figuring that out right now. You've grown how much in the last 2 years? You were telling me pre-call.
Yeah.
What's your growth been looking like?
We've doubled the business size every year for 4 years straight. So it's starting to be significant.
I love it. Jason, thanks for sharing that with us. Now, last off, I always ask this of my guests. I love to give a shout out to somebody in your circle, someone in your network that has inspired you to keep going through these hard times. Who is that shout out, and who can we give that little tag today in the post?
So we sold a company that I founded, Club Caddie, to a public company in 2.5 years ago called Jonas Software. And Jonas is the hospitality division of Constellation Software. And Constellation is a public traded company, 25th with top 25 software companies in revenue in the world. And they're a really good company to work for. There's 500 other companies like Club Caddie in our portfolio, and we all have kind of a coach mentor who's really highly experienced in all things SaaS, and that is there to give us advice. My mentor is Joe Oswald. He's the president of Jonas Club. He's helped us tremendously as an organization. We definitely wouldn't be where we are today without him. And he's become a close personal friend over the last couple of years. So hi, Joe, hope you're watching, and maybe we'll get you on this show too.
I love it. Dude, I would love to get him on the show. And honestly, that is a great shout out, because a lot of people fear what happens after I sell. What happens if I get acquired? What happens if I do? And now you're shouting out someone who has been your mentor through the acquisition group. And that in and of itself is inspirational. Jason, honestly, thank you so much. How do people get a hold of you? Is there a way for them to follow you on any kind of social, or where are you at?
I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, on social. Jason at clubcaddie.com is also a good place to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you and your business. I'm so proud of you and what you've been able to accomplish. Jason, we look forward to catching up here in the near future.
Sounds good.
Thanks for being on the show today.
I look forward to seeing you next time, Todd. Thank you.
Hey, so what did you think of that interview? I loved it. I'm likely going to re-listen to this a few times, because he not only talks about an activity that I love, but he brings it into such a nonsensical business sense. When you think about golf, most people don't think about the business of golf. What he does is he's able to take an otherwise big fat overhead piece in running the pro shop and running the members and running all the other stuff that happens with a golf course, simplifying it so that it requires less overhead, less people, and ultimately a better experience for the client. Golfers hate having to wait in lines and having to wait for, an overbooked golf course. What this software tool does is helps courses manage the whole thing. His business solves a problem that's a common problem in up to 15,000 golf courses around America. And that's just the American market. He picked a niche that he loved. He works with people he loves, and he's able to grow and scale his business into a marketplace that has demand for his goods and services. If you're in a business right now that feels like you're stuck, that feels like maybe you're not solving the right problem, there's a good chance that you're not. Problems evolve, just like your product should. And as your potential clients are maybe finding alternative solutions to what you used to solve, Think about what they're going to need solved next. Move your products forward in a way that will solve more and more of their problems, and they will become more and more dependent on you as a business founder. So go forth, build your business, grow and scale, find some inspiration in this story, share this episode with anyone that you know who is not only in the golf business, but in the SaaS business, or someone who needs just a little bit of encouragement to just keep pushing forward, keep solving that problem, and people will love and appreciate you more and more as you do so. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode.